chest in. Wow guys, we made it. Do you know, I've been looking for like a location outside that's like peaceful enough so we can still be in nature. They're the parrots, for like an hour, and I'm like, do you know what? Let's just get on with it. It really doesn't matter. This is day 3 of 100 videos. 1 video a day in 100 days. Grab your cup of tea. It's story time. What's in the cup today? So in the cup today we have, I've just kept it really simple, really OG. We've got hot, heated up spring water, cloves, which are great for inflammation, they're great for oral health, they're great for anything to do with teeth, they're great for deworming, parasitic stuff, antifungal, they're great for skin, hair, digestion. I could literally go on about cloves, not garlic cloves, those little brown little cloves that taste all spicy if you heat them up, and then some seeded lemon and some seeded lime, and that's it. Because this mama had a margarita, and literally it's so funny, I don't drink hardly at all anymore, you know, honestly maybe 10 times a year, like a nice cocktail. And we went out for mum and dad a date night and had one margarita, and literally woo, like on one. Next thing you know, I'm yamming up this and yamming up that, and eating 8 churros with this most amazing caramel leche sauce, and then I get spots. So I've got a little bit of the blush on today. But stop waffling. Today is about yoga. So day 3 is about yoga, and it's, do you know what? I'm probably going to have to. My sister said stop with the ums, or try and like allow the ums a little bit. So bear with me. Seeing as we're on day 3 yoga, let's take a breath together. That's how we should start this one. Let's take a breath together. So just wherever you are, you're going to relax your shoulders, close the eyes, relax the jawline, ungrit your teeth, unclench your fists, and then take a deep breath in through the nose. And a big sigh as you release. Wow. That in itself, I feel like that's like the power tool of all existence. That like deep inhalation, taking a pause, relaxing everything, and just like resetting yourself. So yeah, today's talk is about yoga. Now, of course, I don't have 5,000, I don't have the ability to talk about 5,000 or more than 5,000 years of a practice, of a spiritual practice. However, we're probably going to chop today's episode up in a few segments, because I wrote down quite a few things that I really want to mention, and I might sway off, because that's just how yoga is to me. The things that I've written down today are imperative, I feel, for today's talk. And I'm just gonna get up and double check this is filming, because I have a weird feeling that it's not. Okay, it is. I just had a feeling. So we should always stick to those feelings. Let's pop the tea down. Okay, so, yoga. Where did we begin? So my first ever yoga session, I think we spoke about this yesterday, was that my first ever? Do you know what? I think my first ever yoga session was in 2012. Yeah, I think it was in 2012. And it was such a beautiful introduction, because it was hatha based. Please, actually, can I pop a disclaimer out? My Sanskrit is still in practice. So I'm going to pronounce some words that may not sound the same. okay? So, but I'm trying, and that's all we can do. We can try, okay? So sometimes I'm saying some of the Sanskrit words and they are a little incorrect, but I'm going to try my hardest with my accent, which is clearly very British. But I'm trying. Now, how we started, 2012, and it was such a great introduction. It was Hatha. It was a Hatha practice, very slow, integrated lots of breath work, and set us up for some tools of how to sit, how to hold yourself, how to move throughout an asana-based practice. Now, asana is one of the 8 limbs of yoga. We're not going to go through the 8 limbs today because this talk is more of like an open flowing talk where I'm not going to go too much into the informative practice of yoga. I'm going to touch on some things, but I'm not going to go and delve deep into that side of the practice. There are thousands of videos and I'm going to give you loads of references so you can go and have a look in your own time. This is more about today's talk is more about how to integrate yoga into your lives, why I feel it's such a great practice for all ages, no matter where you are living, no matter what your belief system is, no matter what religion you come from, no matter what you eat, what you wear. It's for everybody. It's for everybody, for sure. It can help. There are so many tools. So, one moment. I'm sat next to the gym, so when people walk past, I'm just going to pause and then I'll cut that out. So 2012, Brahma Kumaris. If you're not sure, please go back to video 2, and I've written in the description the name where some of myself and the girls went to in 2012 to a spiritual weekend that was donation based. Amazing. So 2012, honestly, from there I practiced in different studios, in gyms, online? No, not too much online at that point. But then moving to Toronto in 2015, I started integrating it into my life much more. So it's a little bit of story time first, and then we'll go into a few other areas of the practice. And I would say when I first started practicing yoga in Toronto, it was in a gym. Yeah, it definitely was in a gym. And there was this really cool teacher, ginger guy, little bubble butt, and he was kind of funny, very serious, but there was humor, which I really appreciated because I hadn't been to a class like that. Now, for any of you that do practice yoga, you'll know it's all about the teacher. And there are so many different teachers out there. So sometimes you can go to a practice and be like, oh my God, yoga is not for me. And that is because of how the teacher is mirroring the practice. So I think that if you've tried yoga and it's just not for you, maybe try a different class. Try a restorative or a yin or a vinyasa. Try a different teacher, try a different area. Try going somewhere that you know nobody. Try going alone. Try going a different time of the day. They can change the classes depending if you're going like first thing in the morning to like last thing at night, how you're feeling. Try going, if you're a woman, try going at different cycle points of your life. So if you're going in your luteal phase where you're feeling quite heavy and irritable, maybe you were looking for more of a restorative yin, soft, nidra, meditative class, meditation-based class. Whereas if you're in your ovulation phase or your follicular phase, which is when you're fertile and your hormones are at different levels, you might have more of a boost of energy. So you want to go to those vinyasa classes, beautifully scripted, and they kind of flow from one asana to the next. Okay, so there are such a variety. Now going back to Toronto, he was amazing. I feel like I do this in every chat, and it's weird because I actually don't do that too much in real life, but he was a brilliant teacher, really, really good teacher. But then I wanted to add a little bit more spirituality to the practice, because what I started to notice was that we were moving through these postures, and I felt strength. I felt a release in my back and my spine, and always had quite a lot of stiffness around the lower back and the shoulders. And every time I'd finish a class, I'd be like, wow, I feel loose, I feel supple, I feel like less tense. So that was initially the first reason why I started to go, to create some freedom and movement in my body. Then I wanted to start integrating more of the spiritual part of the practice. Now, please, guys, I've been to thousands of classes that I would say are not yoga. However, yoga is going to be a different feeling for everybody. Yoga is a spiritual practice that includes asana. Back 5,000 years ago, or maybe plus 5,000 years ago, the asana part of the yoga practice was just to prepare you to be able to sit. Prepare you to be able to sit with the mind for long periods of time in meditation, to be able to sit and observe, okay? Because you can't sit and observe if you're aching here and you're stiff there and you're sore there. You need movement. So I was for sure lacking a lot of the spiritual. I felt like in some of the classes, especially obviously when they're in the fitness centers, they're trying to integrate, they don't want anyone to feel isolated, so they try to kind of, whitewash it a little bit. I'm just using that term, or let's just say, what word do I want to say? Yeah, they're trying to water it down. And actually, yoga shouldn't be watered down, because once you start reading more text and integrating spiritual elements of yoga into your life, it's insane how many things start to move and open up, and your awareness to things 100% increases. Your awareness to life, your awareness to yourself, your relationships, and how you want to live while you're here, right? So I would like to lead on from that. After this, I decided to find a one-on-one teacher. Now, when people say to me, how do I start yoga? What do I do? I say, well, try a few classes, see what you like, and then go and find a teacher. Find a teacher and do some one-on-ones, because you know what? The one-on-ones, you get to really understand the alignment of each asana. Not every single one, there's hundreds, but the basic asanas, you get to the classical, the most used, that we integrate into the movement of a class. You really get to understand why, what organs they activate, why you're moving in that way, what muscles you're using, how to breathe in that asana. So I would say getting a one-on-one, it completely changed everything. I had about 10 sessions one-on-one with a lady called Jessica, who was a little bit older, and it really helped. Then when I started going to other classes, I had this deeper understanding of how to hold my body, how to, sometimes teachers can't, in a room of 20, can't come and correct every single person, and they're trying to, but they also want to create some room for just flow, and so sometimes you're not getting the adjustments. So one-on-one, I would highly suggest. Let's move on. Let's bring myself to, because I'm doing story time first, like the journey of. So let's bring myself now from 2015, moving to Toronto, to leaving Toronto in 2018. Yes, 2018. 2018 was the year of the breakup. Break up. Shattered, broken for sure, big time, but in an upward motion. Decided to go traveling to Guatemala and Mexico. But prior to that, just before I left, a gorgeous friend, Haley Deneen, had said that I can come and stay at her house, okay, for I think it was a couple of months. And she said, oh, let's go and practice some yoga. There's a studio around the down the road called Moksha, and it was a hot yoga studio, and I'd never done hot yoga before. I signed up and I signed up for 30 days and I went every single day bar one. I cried in probably 25 of those sessions. I released, I sweat, I completely understood. It was more like a Bikram style class, so it was a repetition of moves. It's a vinyasa based movement style, so you're moving between each posture, but it's the same each time. Sometimes the teacher's adding on a little segment at the end or throughout, but it's pretty much the same movement, okay? Intense, very, very empowering. Now, some gurus would suggest not going to hot yoga. It's not good for your energy source. For me at the time, going through a breakup, it completely and utterly transformed my life. It allowed me to release in a way that I'm not sure I would have been able to do without it. I'd also been experiencing huge amounts of stress and pain in the left side of my neck and my shoulder, which I was going to see a holistic group of wellness practitioners, which I'll talk about in another episode. And alongside of yoga, they completely helped me. Acupuncture, osteopath, chiropractor, and yoga. I was a brand new me, so I at least heading in that direction. So I left Toronto and I went traveling to Guatemala and Mexico, and I decided to do a 30-day course. I'm going to put this in the description, again, highly suggested. And the course was Las Pyramids in Guatemala, San Marco. Okay, incredible. You are on Lake Atitlan. You are surrounded by volcanoes. There's volcanoes in front that are erupting, in the mornings. Beautiful. You're on this most amazing lake, and the course is a 30-day full moon to full moon. They organize the course in throughout with integrating the elements. So I've got them tattooed on my feet, so I know the order. You first begin, and it's an earth week, so you're grounding into the practice. You're learning about what that means. So you're integrating yoga, the esoteric world. You're learning about how to lucid dream. They're teaching you an array of metaphysics. Just incredible. Highly suggest it. I actually did a kind of yogi trade where for 2 hours a day I worked, and then for the rest, I think it gives you a discount to do it that way. Karma Yogi, it's called. So Earth is the first week, and then Water is the next, which is all about your emotional body, and really opening up that emotional sense and what's kind of holding you back within your emotions, and how water connects us to womb, body, everything, right? Amazing. I don't want to give too much away in case somebody out there wants to do this course. It's brilliant. And then the next is air, and then we finish on fire. Yes. So air is mental. It's about how we're thinking about things. We do a lot of meditation that week, and we're preparing ourselves for the final week, which is fire. And fire is the highest of the elements in their practice, and you are, I think it's a 5-day, it was between 5 to 7 days of liquid fasting. So there's soups, smoothies and teas, and then you go into a silence, and then there's a large ceremony to complete the full moon to full moon. Guys, mind blown. I've got goosebumps now just thinking about it, because I can take myself back to that time and what I learned. I've also got a wicked journal. I should share that in an episode of what we learn. And it's just to know that we are more than this physical body, and to really know, like to continuously in those 30 days get answers from everything. Actually, that brings me to the Bhagavad Gita. Its first topic, Atman. Some of you may know this, Atman. And his quote, "We are not this body, but we are the soul." we are not this body, but we are the soul. That full moon course, you're almost certain, your belief system is, everything is opened up for you mind-wise, and everything is, you build a sense of community. The people there are great. It's run by a woman called Chatty with her 2 daughters. One of the daughters does more of the metaphysics side of the classes, and the other daughter does the yoga. There's also readings, and there's meditation, there's swimming in the lake, it's just beautiful, and you stay in these little wooden pyramids on Lake Atitlan. Anyway, so that's part of my yoga journey, and that's what's for sure one of my samskaras, which we spoke about in the last episode. Samskaras are what make you you. They are your experiences, your indents, your memories, the things that have made you you, things that made Tilly, and that for sure made me remember who I was before all of these things, but it's also now added on to my life and how I want to live and who I want to surround myself with. And yes, you sometimes, it's not a straight journey, but parrot. But I always come back to that, this optimism, this energy to life, this prana as you would say in yoga. In Sanskrit, it means life force, this energy, right? Okay, so that's my waffle over about yoga. Now, I had noticed, this is a bit of a area of the yoga world. I'd noticed, even from practicing from 2012 all the way now up to 2018, I'd never had a teacher from, first of all, from Indian descent, never from African descent. And sometimes I'd be going to these classes in Toronto, 40, 50 people, and it'd be me and maybe one other person in the class. I'm thinking, this is crazy. This is not an inclusive practice at all. Motorbike. This is not an inclusive practice at all, and I really wanted to ensure that to be included in an inclusive space was extremely important to me. So I decided in Guatemala that I was going to train and get my yoga teacher training license at some point within the next year, and have babies at some point. That was also another whole situation that came to life. Yeah, so that's that kind of journey in a nutshell of yoga. Why I decided to then become a teacher. I really wanted to find an Indian teacher, but at the time I was living in Toronto and I didn't want to travel to India because I knew I was going to be leaving at some point. So I actually found somebody based in Miramar in Miami in Florida, and the course was incredible, but I left feeling that I was never going to be a teacher, because I was like, how can you possibly go away now and teach when you've just, it's like a speck of sand. It's good. This man's being so nice. I'm filming and he's just walking past. I'm going to pause it. Thank you. I've got to do a part 2. So let's finish that one off, that part 1, because the guy that was, it's really cute actually. There was an elder that was coming out of the gates from the gym, and he's walked down and he's like really trying to be quiet. I was like, that's really nice. Like close the gate quietly, and then he's walked down, and I've just thought, you know what, I'll just stop the video. And then we started speaking, and we started talking about yoga. He's got this whole story. Now listen, this is what I'm saying to you about yoga. You would have absolutely no idea that this gentleman practiced yoga. Okay? Nothing. Okay? And we were just talking about that, fitting into these boxes of what people think a yogi or person that practices yoga looks like. Yoga is for everybody. It's a spiritual practice, so you don't have to wear your 2-piece aloe shirt, top and da-da-da-da-da, and don't have to do any of that. Burn your incense, and it's all just exterior. It's an inward practice. Anyway, we got talking for like 20 minutes about yoga and India and where he's been and and he told me about all the studios around here. So we're gonna do a part 2 because I actually have no idea where I'm up to. Oh, that was it. Decided to get my teacher training, and it just felt like I'd learned like a little pinch of sand worth of the whole beach. That it felt like I'd learned in regards to a whole beach of sand, just a pinch. I was like, I can't teach this. How am I going to teach this? I don't know enough. And then COVID hit, and I'd met this new gorgeous guy while I was traveling in California, and we were dating, and COVID hadn't hit yet, but we were dating. We met in Oakland, who's now my husband, yee, and I'm a baby father, yee, and father of my child, I should say, my father of my future children, my king man, my partner in life. All right, Tills, all right. Anyway, he'd said to me around COVID time, you got to teach, babe. People are looking for ways to like release and just help themselves. And he was like, just put out a little Zoom and tell people it's donation based and get online. Guys, I had like, I think it was about 30 people on that first Zoom, and I taught only what I had been taught, and then in my style and just what I'd learned across the years, and that's how I got started. It's pretty much I got my license in that December, and by March I was teaching online, and it continued the whole of the year online. And then I started working in studios once I moved out of Toronto back to England. I started working in studios and then corporate, and that's kind of my journey with yoga. That's kind of that's where I wanted to start with, like, my journey. Now, interestingly enough, me and this guy that just met, Adam, we were talking about why people practice in the first place, and so many people decide to practice because of a moment in their life that's really changed them, a catalyst, like we were talking about yesterday. For me, it was a breakup. It was also pain in the body that yoga really helped me. So it was more of a physical act why I was wanting to practice. And everyone's going to have their own reason, right? You want to be able to meditate because you've got so much chatter that's going on in the mind. You want to learn how to bring some presence into your life. So you want to tap into your nervous system. You want to understand these energy points in the body, and we talk about these energy points, these chakras. There's 7 main ones, but they're actually, I think there are over 60. I need to reference where I've got that from, what book, but I'll bring that back in another episode. So let me go through my notes, because my notes are juicy. So there's an amazing teacher called Nikita Desai. I absolutely love her work. She has an amazing book called The Roots of Yoga. I would highly suggest buying that book, The Roots of Yoga. It's a purple cover with gold writing, and she's an amazing teacher anyway. An amazing advocate for inclusivity and just inclusion, right? Not inclusivity. I guess it's both words, but if Lululemon and Alo and all these big companies worldwide, and there's yoga days and there's this days and there's that days, but they're not representing any Indian teachers. Every single person that they're representing is of Caucasian skin. Make it make sense. It doesn't make no sense. Anyway, so she's an amazing teacher, and she'll speak about that in very passionate ways, and I love that. Anyway, so she mentions the guru that she works with, a teacher that she works with, Prasad Ranjneka. Again, excuse me for my pronunciation, but listening to some of his words online, she asks, and what would you say if you could explain yoga? Like, how would you, if you were trying to sum yoga up in one line, what would you say? And he says, to end all suffering. And the realization of self. to end all suffering and the realization of self. And for me, goosebumps again, it's beautiful because that is why we practice. You practice to end all the suffering in the mind, to end all the suffering in the body. Not all, there's going to be moments in life where we're up and down, but the practice helps with that. And it helps with the realization of self. For instance, a really simple way of me explaining something. I'm in a bad mood, I wake up in the morning, I'm rushing, someone opens the door in front of me, I don't say thank you, there's someone behind me, I don't keep the door open, and this person gets a little bit frustrated. Am I realizing my actions and how I'm adding to that energy of maybe waking up in a bad state or bad mood or whatever? Am I able to simply realize how, how I can tap back into observing myself in those moments, breathing, and not attaching myself to all these emotions that I'm feeling but aren't mine. They don't belong to me. The soul doesn't have all of these things. We've just built up all of these things through ego, through lack of awareness, through privilege, through feeling like we have these stories that we attach to ourselves, and then we are often unable to detach from that, even in itself. Even this story that I'm explaining today is still my story that I'm trying to express through you, and you'll be building up a picture of then who that Tilly is, and I'll also have done the same. But am I able in moments to detach completely from that, and every day start new, and every day observe this being as a new slate, yeah, without all of these things. Anyway, waffling again. Let's go back. So to end all suffering and realization of self, just realize that I'm sitting right next to a gate. I'm sorry. Some people aren't putting it through it, so closing it gently. I put underneath here, yoga saved my life many, many times. So in tomorrow's episode, it's really, really short, and it's just a poem that I've written that I really want to share with you. So please subscribe, or at least follow for day 4, where I've written a poem, a yoga poem. I've often loved to write, and there's a poem that I wrote back in March that I still haven't shared, and it sums up why yoga saved me personally many, many times. And it saves you because, again, you're able to detach yourself from all these emotions that you feel, and you are able to bring presence in through breath, and you are able to tap into this nervous system. You're also able to tap into going to transcendental states, or states outside of this physical body, and then in turn you can then realize that nothing lasts forever, and also you can break free of holding on to all these things again, these emotions, this anger, this bitterness, this judgment. So yeah, going back to yoga, spiritual practice, totally. I've spoken about the journey, I've spoken about the asana being one of the 8 limbs of yoga. I want to talk to you next, guys, about book recommendations. I'm not in my home at the moment, but please grab a pen and paper if you want to write them down. If not, I'll put them in the description below. So the books I would recommend are The Truth of Yoga. It's an orange book with a flower on the front of it. The next one is The Roots of Yoga by Nikita Desai. Nikki Yoga is her social media on Instagram and TikTok. Yoga Anatomy, because it's illustrated, and each page is going to give you the asana, the description, spiritual reasoning, and yeah, it's just perfect. Nice chunky book. Next is Eastern Body, Western Mind, and then of course the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is just a brilliant book of spiritual context. Like it has to be read. Next, I've added in the 4 Agreements, which actually is not a yoga book, but I feel like if you are starting out with a spiritual practice, then the 4 Agreements is an amazing book. So yeah, the 4 Agreements would be my last recommendation. Why, some of you might ask, because it's nothing to do with yoga, because it is about a spirit, it's about spirituality, and it's about seeing things from a different perspective. So they're my books I'd recommend. Let's talk about retreats. I'm gonna sip tea first. Sip tea. So good. So, oh, you can add honey to these teas, guys. If you're not a tea kind of drinker, you can add honey to these teas. So let's talk retreats. I'm going to cut this.